I came across Alchemical Business Intensive, and it felt for me like the right mix of structure and systems and processes and actual data of what works, and also the alchemical, which is essentially my work.
Hi, everyone. We're here with Tamara, and we're going to be chatting about the Alchemical Business Intensive and her business. So, Tamara, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I'm Tamara. My business is Tamara the Brave. I live in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales in Australia, and my business is around transformational mentoring, spending time with humans as they transform their lives from the inside out. And I do that through one-on-one coaching over 6 or 12 months. And I also have an online program, which is a 12-week group journey called Emerge, which is launching soon.
So it's been about 6 months since you first joined the Alchemical Business Intensive. I'd love to start off just chatting about where you were in your business, in your head, and what you were really looking for that had you decide to join the Alchemical Business Intensive.
Yeah, so I'd already been coaching one-on-one for a while and really loving that. And I'd learned a lot about kind of some of the ways that people move through their transformational process that's similar. And I had the idea to then collate that into a map, and then I can offer it in a group process, more suited for people who prefer to learn in a group, or for a cost reason, or for other reasons they kind of prefer that format. And so I did that and offered this group once last year, and just did the launch myself based on having watched other people's launches or been a client who came in through someone else's launches. And I thought, okay, cool, I can kind of work this out. And ran the program. It was small and great, a great learning for me. And then by the time I came across your program, I was ready to learn kind of the structure and treat it more like a business, more separate to me and like my offering to the world, and go, right, I have this thing, and how do I set up how to bring it to the world? Partly I'd overheard a couple of friends who do similar work online, and I'd overheard them talking one day, and they kind of went, so what are you launching at the moment? The other one went bang, bang, bang. And I sat there and went, oh, it's just easy. They're just talking about their gift to the world, their offering to the world, as if it's a product, and they're working as a marketer or a promoter and they have a product. And it flipped something in my brain to go, oh, it doesn't have to be this great big merging between me and my business, and oh my goodness, it's how do I put it out in the world and how do I promote myself? Their conversation was just like really factual. What do you got going on right now? And so it wasn't that long later until I came across Alchemical Business Intensive, and it felt for me like the right mix of structure and systems and processes and actual data of what works, and also the alchemical, which is essentially my work. So it was for me anyway, it was a nice balance of the two of those.
So good. Yeah, there's so much there with how we can really merge our identities with our businesses. And so it's almost like when a mom has a child, and you kind of feel like you're one and the same, and then the child actually needs to individuate and become this toddler and go out into the world. And yeah, amazing that it switched in your head so quickly, because a lot of people can take years and years and years before that even crosses their mind.
Yeah, it's probably been one of the biggest shifts for me, and it was one of the more recent things we covered in the intensive, was that sort of separation between self and business. And it took a moment for me to kind of get that, because my business has my name as well.
Yeah.
And so to start to go, oh, I work for my business, and my business has a transmission or something coming through that needs to be talked about. And that sort of distance allowed me to relax more about promoting myself, that thing that can sometimes be a bit tricky.
Yeah, I remember you having that big breakthrough. Like, oh my gosh, it all clicked into place.
Yeah, and once I actually sat down to sort of journal, ask my business what it wanted and what it was here for, and journal on it, it was really clear. It came through really fast, and it is a different energy to Tamara, my personal self. It's a different kind of clarity and force that this business wants to kind of have in the world.
That's so good. So is there anything else that you felt like was hard or difficult before that you really wanted to iron out?
No, I think the piece for me really was structure, and it's something that I've not always found easy in my personal life. I've been quite, I'm Sagittarian. I like a lot of freedom and space, and I've kind of someone that's gone with the flow and gone with what's presented itself in my life. And so it was a personal shift that was also showing up in my business, that I needed some more structure and some sort of foundations to then allow that visionary capacity to really kick in when the base is set. And so it was a kind of joint exploration for me personally, and then having that show up in my business. That was the biggest piece. And for me, that's what came through really clearly in the Alchemical Business Intensive kind of sales page, and the stuff I was reading was there was a really strong focus on structure and systems.
So how do you feel like within these last 6 months you've helped yourself and you've helped your business put structures and systems into place?
I feel like I just had access to you and your team and everything that you've kind of done specifically for other CEOs, visionary CEOs. That's how I found you, was through someone else you'd worked for, and I really liked their work and I liked their launch. And so for me, it was like, okay, great, this person launches in a way that suits me. And I've been around other business containers, and the personal style is not me. Like, I can feel it. And it's like, well, why would I go into a container with someone who doesn't kind of launch or market themselves in a way that I can resonate with? I would always then be kind of editing what they're teaching so that it suits me, right? Yeah, it was, for me, it was like, okay, cool, I know I need this piece. I know I need the structure and the systems piece. And then, yeah, you showed up.
Well, and as a Sagittarius, just you focusing your energy in on one thing is so powerful.
Yes, there is that. And it's funny, like, also from a Sagittarian perspective, I can definitely overestimate what I can get done. And so when we started Alchemical Business Intensive, I'm like, great, I'm going to launch in December. And I think, did we start in September or something?
Yes, we started in October.
Right. And so I'm like, great, yeah, let's do it, kind of high expectations. And it's been a longer journey than that. It's been, I guess, a deeper journey than that. And it took time for all of that to land and piece together. So I appreciated the pace and the 6-month kind of time frame for all of that to kind of settle.
Well, and you've had the reality of being in Australia in these last few months. Like, there's some really real life things happening.
I think that's the other thing with the pace. Stuff has gone down in my world and everybody's world, and it currently is today. But the 6-month container means that there was space to sort of like give attention to what was happening elsewhere in my life, and then be able to come back, rather than say, a kind of a 3-month container where if you miss 3 or 4 weeks, like, you miss a lot. I guess that spaciousness around implementing and learning has been really beneficial.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I'm the same way. So many of us, in the culture that we grew up in, and I can't speak, I've never lived in Australia, but I know in the US, there's so much pushing culture as an entrepreneur, and the hustle and the working all the time, the grind, and all of these words that we hear having to do with entrepreneurship. And it's just, I don't think it's healthy, and I don't think it's good for you or your business to push when a lot of stuff is about blossoming and allowing to unfold,
Yeah. For me, I think it's been a balance, because I definitely needed, I guess, a little bit more push. Push may not be the right word, because I can sit in a lot of flow. I don't have a lot of other requirements in my life. My life is really spacious. And so I sort of needed a little bit, but then if it kicks too hard into that yang kind of driven energy, I've been there before. I've run my life that way before. I've had corporate careers that work that way, and it really doesn't suit me. So it was coming to this sort of center place of allowing spaciousness and time and rest and what it takes to kind of be in the visionary space, and with a little bit of like, okay, cool, you need to actually like do the things,
How did our weekly calls feed into that?
I was really determined not to miss any. I only missed those 3 because the entire region where I live was flooding. Because I know for myself in courses, I very rarely go back and watch replays. Like, it's once the energy's moved, it's not easy for me to go back. And so it kind of kept me on, it was like, great, I have a call. And they went into my calendar, and that's what was happening. Even the really, really early time zone ones, where, remember those ones where I'm sitting in the dark because it's with a coffee in my pajamas. But it felt really important to sort of be there. and to stay connected to the content, but also to the group, and to kind of have that accountability where other people are like, hey, how did you go with that thing that you were talking about last week? So that worked for me to sort of pace it so that I kept on track. And the other thing I liked was the implementation calls. You know, that energy of just not necessarily doing any talking, but all of us being online together at the same time, doing our things. I got quite a bit done in those because it was a focused doing time. And even if I had my sound off and my camera off, it was like, right, I'm going to like whip out 3 email drafts in this hour that we're on together. So I found that really helpful as well.
That's great. That's great. That was a new feature for this round, was actually putting in those implementation calls where, for anyone listening, we connect for an hour, maybe 90 minutes, and just we say at the beginning what we're working on, and at the end we're checking in on what actually got done, because it is so easy, especially as busy people or people who are going into the bush and going off and focusing on other things, to actually schedule in that time. So being able to come together and have that unified collective energy of completion. So I'm happy to hear that.
And also being able to unmute and go, hey, Sam, I'm just writing this thing and I'm not sure about that. Like actually being able to get that kind of feedback and direction in the moment, rather than me doing it myself offline and then getting stuck on something. And like, it was kind of great to just be able to go, what would you do here? Or how does that work? And yeah, in terms of what else is going on in my life, I run vision quests out in the bush, and I work with an Indigenous law woman, which often means being in ceremony and being in such a different mindset and place where my laptop doesn't exist and I don't care about my phone, and I'm really somewhere else fully energetically. And so part of wanting this business structure too is that there are systems in place that I can either delegate or that run on their own. So if I'm literally without mobile reception and without any attention on my business for 5 or 6 or 7 days at a time, there's stuff still kind of happening. There's still momentum and energy, and I can fully be present somewhere else.
That's so good. So what do you feel like have been the biggest breakthroughs you've had in the last 6 months?
I think the biggest one is the one I mentioned before, about seeing my business as its own entity with its own reason for being on the planet. That was really big. It really shifted something internally for me, because then I can speak really openly and passionately about this body of work that's coming through, because I can see really clearly that it has to come through. And speaking about the body of work, I'm not speaking about, oh, hey, I'm the greatest transformational mentor you've ever met, like, you know, which is not my style. So that shift was really key for me, definitely. So that, in terms of a mindset shift, I think was really big. And then just having the map set out for the launch. So I'm about to start my launch, as you know, and I have a map, I have some emails, I have a plan, and then there's space to kind of be intuitive and responsive to the energetics in amongst that. But I kind of know what I'm doing, rather than just winging it or guessing or sort of, yeah. So those two things in conjunction, I think, for me.
And tell me about your experience within the community, or just like the overall vibe of the container.
Actually, that was just running through my head as I finished that last sentence. I've really appreciated the size of the group, that it's not so massive that you lose kind of contact with who else is in the space, or that there's too many people for you to care what's going on for them in their business. It's small enough to feel intimate, and that I actually know what the other people's businesses are about, and I care, you know, with what they're bringing each week. And I've had a couple of catch-ups and sessions with people from the group, and I've super appreciated that. That kind of sharing of expertise has been really supportive. And one of the people from the group is actually now helping set up my entire course in the teaching platform I've chosen, and somebody else, you know, has the astrology forecasting that I actually really related to. It wasn't this large conceptual stuff that I've experienced with astrology before. It was super targeted to me and my launch. And, you know, there's sort of been some really kind of good exchanges and feedback that I can respect. I've been in other containers where either the businesses are super different, or it's more just like It's more just like kind of where people are at. And I end up feeling kind of slightly separate to the group because it's like, oh, that's not where I'm at. Like that's, you know, I'm not in that place in business anymore. I'm here, but I feel like there was a certain equality in where everybody was at, that we were in it together and still had, you know, gold to offer each other.
Yeah, that's a really important thing for me, where I talked with all of you guys coming into the container of like, this is not just about me and what I'm teaching. And of course, this training is important. Of course, the structure is important, but the people who actually come in, you have to be willing to be there for one another. Like, I want you guys all peer coaching each other or giving each other sessions or supporting each other in many different ways. And everyone was all in on that. So it's just amazing to see people actually take advantage of it, because that's the value of a mastermind, is the networking, the collaboration, the hive mind, all the things. So I love hearing that.
Yeah, it felt really willingly supportive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've been in other containers where the participants are selling to each other, you know, which is fine. Yeah. I mean, there might be something in there and you might get your kind of fellow member discount or whatever, but it's a really different energy than being with kind of, it felt like there was a level of maturity that both personally and in business that sort of was a match for me.
So good. Oh, so I wanted to ask you what it means to you to be a visionary CEO.
Yeah, I feel like those two things, visionary and CEO, are two aspects of myself that I've needed to really grow into and own. Mm-hmm. And I think in the past, I've sort of treated them as almost two polarities. And partly this journey has been about bringing them together and seeing them actually as a union, you know, that it can be both, and it is both within this particular human, that there is this capacity for vision, and then there's a capacity to bring that to life and make it real and run a business based around that vision. And so, yeah, it's been the merging of polarities, a large theme in my own personal development for the last kind of 10 years. And this is how it's showing up in business for me, is that kind of, that merging of what I previously treated as two separate aspects of myself.
What has been your transformation of becoming the visionary CEO in the last 6 months?
It feels a little bit like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Like there's this sense of, these two parts of myself that I've previously lived, you know, in polarity have come together. So there's this deep sense of rightness and being right here, right now, with this body of work that really wants to come through. And particularly as the world continues to get a little bit more mental, you know, like there's a war in the Northern Hemisphere. There's natural disasters down the street from me right now. We're at the end of 2 years of lockdowns and shutdowns and weirdness because of that. The world is like completely crazy. It's not going to change. You know, I feel like it's actually ramping up. And this body of work helps people build the inner resources that you need for life. And it's kind of getting more important. And so for me, I'm in a place where I'm really ready now to kind of bring that through and have that, you know, be available to more people.
I'm so excited for you tomorrow.
So
good. Well, in wrapping up, do you have any final messages for people who are listening or are thinking about joining the Alchemical Business Intensive?
I guess if you resonate with what I just said, like if you feel like you're in a similar place where there's something coming that's kind of tapping on your shoulder going, hey, the world needs this, and somehow you're caught in your own story about it, or you're kind of caught in, oh no, but I can't speak about it because it's my body of work, or if any of that resonates, the Alchemical Business Intensive was what helped me kind of get through that and find that perspective and find the structure that I need. So if that's where you're at, I guess check it out and feel if it's right for you.
Yes, feel into it always. Thank you so much, Tamara. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.